Everybody, what's going on? It is time for Week 11 and the DFS Pick 6, the RotoWorld DFS Pick 6, presented by RotoGrinders. I'm Eric Crane. I'm joined, as always, we got Evan Silva, we got Rich Rebar. Mr. Reeves, how we doing today?
Crane, man, Week 11, our last, full week of bye weeks. And it's not as even, you wouldn't even know 6 teams were on bye this week because all the terrible teams that we don't play any fantasy players from are on bye.
Yeah, it's the buys are almost over, which means that it's a lot more work for our boy Evan Silva. Evan, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that this week, and I'm just starting to really look forward to. Can you hear me? By the way?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, cool. I'm really starting to look forward to. I'm starting to look forward to just heading back to St. Louis with my daughter and, spending 10 days in STL. Maybe we could get together at some point, Crane, although Thanksgiving I never really am able to get together with anybody. I always think it's a good idea, but at some point I'd like to, because I know you're an STL dude as well. But yes, absolutely. I got the – I mean, you know what's up here, right?
I know, yeah. You got the Busch Stadium over there. I know what's going on.
Exactly. But no, I'm really excited for the Thanksgiving slate. This slate is very intriguing because again, like I've said a lot of times, I play the Thursday through the Monday. That's my thing, and I do like to have exposure to the Thursday game. There are some good values in the Thursday game. I think that Aaron Jones is underpriced. I think that Marquez Valdez-Scantling is underpriced. But our goal really, if we're doing Thursday through Monday, I think, is to try to get as much exposure as possible to that incredible game on Monday.
Yeah, is this the highest total ever?
Yeah. It is.
I mean, it is.
That's
wild. It's going to be good times.
Yeah.
It's going to be really good times. If you're a fan of, scoring and sports and fun. And, of course, we're talking about the Rams and the Chiefs, total of 64. And we'll touch on that game maybe at the end of the show. But, that's one of those, if you're counting your money, if you're playing the Monday or the Thursday through Monday slate and you're counting your money before Monday night, you're definitely just you're doing it wrong, guys.
Yeah.
You're absolutely doing it wrong. You're going to be in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, Reeves, have you put together any Thursday through Mondays?
I haven't. I think I'm gonna not play on this slate because of that game.
No, it actually makes it tempting to not play it. First of all, they're most of the guys aren't good values. I think that Tyreek on FanDuel at 7,900 is pretty tempting, and I think Josh Reynolds at 5K on FanDuel is pretty tempting, but I mean everybody else is very, very expensive. I mean they're not cutting you any breaks.
Yeah, and you guys know me. I'm just all about getting exposure to those big total games, and you mentioned cheap guys, those value guys like Josh Reynolds. It's weird to say how do you fade Josh Reynolds, but at the price that he is across the industry, I think you just got to kind of roll the dice on him. So I mean let's talk about kind of the main slate because we've got a slate where. A lot of different ways we can go as far as I'm concerned. So let's go ahead and jump into one of our first games. It's Tennessee at Indianapolis. It's a 48.5-point total. The Colts at home, they're 2-point favorites. And Reeves, I'll tell you, man, my boy Andrew Luck, he just keeps getting it done week in and week out. They're throwing at one of the highest rates in the red zone. Andrew Luck, he's just slinging it. He gets a matchup against Tennessee that, they might have stopped Tom Brady last week, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they don't have that kind of success 2 weeks in a row. So what are we liking with the Colts this week?
I mean, Luck was no Blake Bortles last week, but he still had another effective game. He's now thrown 3 or more touchdowns in 6 straight games. That's the longest streak in NFL since Tom Brady went 10 straight games in 2007. You touched about Tennessee. Now they've got really great defensive numbers, and I kind of wore it last week, and I kind of said, Tennessee really is all the good quarterbacks they've played have kind of touched them up, and then they just went and shut down Tom Brady. I mean, they pulled the starters. They white flagged the Patriots. They white flagged it. They were done. They got rocked. We have to look into Bill Belichick facing his old defensive coordinator because I feel like they all got his number. Obviously, he lost the 2 games this year. But was Vrabel even the DC there?
Nope.
He wasn't.
Never even coached on the Patriots staff.
Okay, so sounds wrong because the Mangini used to get him too.
Yeah, so Romeo Cornell.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the story is there, but so the Tennessee Titans. So first of all, the Titans games are all like slogs. They're all like mostly terrible games. Their games features the fewest amount of combined points in the NFL. 35.4 combined points per game. They're allowing just 1.7 offensive touchdowns per game. That's the fewest in the league. But then you look at when the good quarterbacks they faced outside of Brady, Carson Wentz got him for 20. Phillip Rivers got him for over 20. Deshaun Watson got him for over 20. As good as Luck is playing, I just don't think you can really fade him at this point. You just have to stick with him. They're not getting – he hasn't been sacked now in 4 straight games. That's the longest streak since 2014 in the NFL. He's gone like 90 dropbacks now in a row where he hasn't gotten sacked, which is just unreal. So, I mean, yeah, I think you just keep playing him. The thing about Luck that's super frustrating is like the stacking thing is like a real problem because he throws all these touchdowns to these gaggle of tight ends. Ebron ran 12 freaking pass routes last week, scores 3 touchdowns. 1 is rushing. It's, I guess you just play Luck by himself, but I mean, it's super frustrating that these Mo Alley Coxes keep scoring, and Eric Swope was doing it before then, and it's super frustrating to pair him up with. It's kind of like the Russell Wilson syndrome, because he's been so efficient, but all these guys keep producing on such low volume that you never want to play them.
I mean, I'll tell you who you pair him up with this week. It's a TY week, baby. How can you not love T.Y. Hilton this week? Evan, well, I see you smirking over there. What do you think about T.Y. Hilton?
No, I mean, I think it's kind of like getting to be T.Y. time. His price is way, way down, 6,800 on FanDuel. He did lead the team in receiving yards and targets last week. He had the most air yards on the team. He's always had strong splits at home on the Lucas Oil Stadium Fast Track. You look at receiver or just pass catchers in general that have hurt the Titans, and it's not tight ends. It's not really slot receivers. It is guys who play on the outside. Tyrell Williams, 4 for 118 and a touchdown. Michael Crabtree, 6 for 93 and a touchdown. Josh Gordon didn't win the battle against Adoree Jackson last week, but he did have over 80 yards. Amari Cooper, 5 for 56 and a touchdown. Those are all guys that play on the outside. And then if you're worried about Adoree Jackson, T.Y. Hilton's slot rate has been up since he came back from his hamstring injury, and he's just way too quick for Logan Ryan in the slot for the Titans. So, I think that anytime we can get T.Y. Hilton like at peak health, at a cheap cost, at home in a spot where no one's going to play him, I think he's really, really interesting. I was thinking about maybe even playing him in cash.
Yeah, I think the targets are going to be there. Obviously, the big playability is there. I have a tough time not playing T.Y. Hilton this week, honestly. And I'm a guy, I've just kind of fallen into this Andrew Luck thing every week almost. So I'm just like, this week, who do I like? And I do a lot of research, and I always just end up playing Andrew Luck. And I feel like this week's not going to be any different. Last week, I loaded up with him again and Jack Doyle. Right process, wrong result. Obviously, Eric Ebron ended up crushing it. But this week, I think it's going to be a T.Y. Hilton week. Reeves, what else are you looking at with the Colts?
That's mostly it with the Colts. Obviously, you're just looking at the passing game mostly. I don't think this is a game where if you look at Marlon Mack, I think last week we saw that it was, his first games, he kind of had to feel that they were definitely matchup induced, the ceiling games he had. Now we kind of got to see what the floor was like in a tougher matchup, against the Jaguars run defense. That was good coming into last week. Tennessee, they've allowed the fewest rushing yards in the NFL over the past 3 games. They've allowed just 3 rushing touchdowns on the year now. Just not a spot where I'm excited to really play any of the Colts backs. I'm mostly looking at Luck. I'm into Hilton. The other side is in play here too. This game has fun on both sides potential if it doesn't get mucked up. So we can talk about the other side too. I think it's a great week to go back to Deion Lewis on DK. Yes. He let a lot of people down last week. He still out-touched Derrick Henry 22-11 last week in a game that was controlled throughout. He didn't get those money touches, but you'll take the touch volume over what he had over against Derrick Henry. Doubled him up in touches. He's out-touched him 64-33 now the past 3 games. The Colts are 20th in rushing points allowed to running backs, and they allow 7.9 receptions to running backs. We talk about them playing that zone defense, repeatedly. Leonard Fournette had 5 for 56 against them last week in the receiving game. So, I think it's a great week to go back to Deion Lewis, who probably left a sour taste in some people's mouths last week when he was the hot guy.
Yeah, this seems like a really good matchup for Deion Lewis, and of course with the other Titans, Evan, Marcus Mariota, man, gets the ball over to Corey Davis. Corey Davis has a big game through the air. What do we think about this Titans offense?
Yeah, so let's just talk about the Colts defense for a moment. So they had 17 sacks in their first 4 games. They have 4 sacks combined over their last 5 games.
Not very many.
No, they were like very much like a smoke and mirrors defense early in the season. They play all zone. They've given up the highest completion rate in the AFC, 72%. They got destroyed by Derek Carr. No one gets destroyed by Derek Carr. Blake Bortles last week, by the way, like doubled up Alex Smith.
That's the only game that the Raiders have scored a touchdown in the past month was against the Colts.
Colts have given up 26 or more points in 5 of their last 7. Marcus Mariota over his last 2, 70% completion rate, almost 9 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So Marcus Mariota dealt with a nerve issue in his throwing elbow to where he could not even grip the ball well. And it was very inconsistent as to when he could grip the ball. And, I mean, just a ton of, like, head-scratching throws. He's 100% now. And over the last month, he's averaging 29 rushing yards per game. So we have him indoors. We have him healthy. We have him with Corey Davis balling. And we have him facing an offense that is unlikely to be stopped by the Titans defense, because the main thing that you need to know about the Colts offense is that they have the best offensive line in football. And I know that sounds crazy. I know it sounds crazy. Okay. And like I say it on Twitter, and like people are like, you're crazy. They played the Raiders, and like people don't believe it. But when you go almost 200 pass attempts without allowing a sack, you're top 5 in the NFL in, yards per carry. I mean, at some point you have to acknowledge, like, this is legit the best offensive line in the league. The Cowboys have taken a step back. The Lions look great for a while. They're not good anymore. The Colts have been steady Eddie, and, it's been regardless of opponent. I mean, they won against the Jaguars last week, and I know the Jaguars have not been great in terms of their defensive line play, or at least not as good as last year, but they've been good. They have a top 5 pressure rate, and the Colts allowed 0 sacks and 2 quarterback hits the entire game. So the Colts, like, when you give Andrew Luck the best offensive line in the league, a healthy pass catcher core with T.Y. Hilton back, with Jack Doyle back, with Eric Ebron rolling, and, all these other parts, I think this is a matchup-proof offense.
Yeah, I do too, and it's one of the reasons I keep loading up on the Colts passing game. Like, I just think they have a really high floor, and, obviously they have a high ceiling because a lot of touchdown equity in those passes, but the floor is really huge for them too, which obviously I like. Yeah, I mean, is Mariota in play this week again, Evan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I was too low on him last week too. I was too low on him. I should have liked him more than I did. But I mean, you have him playing indoors. You have him playing against a weak defense where he's not going to be pressured. You have Corey Davis balling. I mean, you have a total that is starting to get hit. It's open at 48, starting to get hit to the over. I mean, I think this game absolutely has shootout potential.
What about you, Reeves? Is there anybody specifically in Tennessee you're keying in on?
Yeah, I think I'll probably flock to the Corey Davis propaganda on both sites, just where he's priced. It's hard not to, just where he's priced. And like Evan said, I think this game has a shot to shoot out. And, just the efficiency that passers are having against the Colts is what I'm drawn to. You have a chance to stack targets and stack catches because there are no incompletions thrown against them ever. Evan said 72% completion rate allowed. And Corey Davis has been that guy. It's been Corey Davis, Jarvis Landry, and John Brown all year, like the 3 guys. Like, if you run your model every week, those 3 guys always pop because they have such high target shares, such high air yardage shares, and we're just going to kind of chase them all week. But Corey Davis has now strung 2 in a row together, and it has to just. I mean, the line of defense here is just the injury that Marcus Mariota had. He's not wearing that glove on his hand anymore. So that helps. And then the schedule's lightened up. They had a brutal front half schedule. The Titans did, combined with Mariota's injury. Now it's starting to lighten up and soften up. So now we're starting to see that shift and starting to see some more consistency and upside in this offense than we saw over the opening half of the season.
Yeah, go ahead, Evan. You were about to say something?
No, I mean, I remember looking at the Titans schedule just to open the year, like just for like best ball purposes. And the schedule from like weeks 3 until their bye, which I believe was week 8, it was just brutal. I mean, it was like, I don't even know if I could take this guy in redraft. I'll take him in best ball, but like I wasn't going to really try to take Marcus Mariota in redraft. And then I actually did take him in redraft a little bit. They played the Dolphins in week 1, and it started in the preseason, because in the preseason they look so bad. Like they look like the worst offense in the league in the preseason. And that was very telling, because they started the season really, really slow. Look, they're installing a new offense, and they have a lot of young dudes. They have Corey Davis. He barely played as a rookie. I mean, he was dealt with a hamstring his entire rookie year. They lost Delaney right away. He was going to be a huge part of their offense. Taywan Taylor barely played as a rookie. I mean, they had a lot of moving parts, and the red flags were right there in the preseason, and then they didn't look good right out of the gate. Like, so, I mean,
their entire O-line was hurt too.
Their entire O-line was hurt. Taylor Lewan got hurt early. Jack Conklin wasn't ready for the season. I mean, they were in really bad shape to begin the year.
Yeah, besides all that, they were fine.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about one of the games where we got a couple of crappy teams, and when we do that, we got a lot of fantasy potential. The Bucks at the Giants. 51.5 point total. The Giants are 1-point favorites at home. And Reeves, I'll let you get started, man. Which side do you want to talk about first? Because they're both exciting.
I mean, either or. I mean, this is that game where, you just kind of, you like real football fans don't care, but like fantasy football fans are all about this game. There's just a lot of potential here. Obviously the Bucks every week, leave it to the Redskins to not be able to hit in a spot where they play the Buccaneers. And somehow the Redskins got to put their stink on the, Buccaneers being able to not score touchdowns, even though they had 475 yards of offense and scored 3 points. I think the process was there still for Fitzpatrick. I'm curious to see here, where Evan fit. Are we getting to the end of the Fitzpatrick reign? Like, what's the leash now with Fitzpatrick? Because I know people will tell me Jameis isn't playing because of his salary.
Yeah.
Listen, this dude wouldn't be active.
That is the best argument against that.
He wouldn't be active.
Right.
Because every Ryan Fitzpatrick scramble is a freaking motorcycle crash. Like this dude is trying to dive through linebackers like he's 22 years old. Like he's no caution to the wind. Like it's crazy, man. He wouldn't be active though. I know that. I literally think that Cutter thinks that they have a chance to win. They have 2 winnable games. This week they play the Giants. Next week they play the 49ers. I guarantee you that he still thinks they can hang around this thing. Then they're probably going to lose out because their schedule gets terrible. But when is the leash? Are we getting closer to the leash ending for the Fitz magic run here? Because
be careful applying rational thought to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I know. I said before the show, before you got on, that I was going to see if Evan was going to start to shift his Browns ire to the Buccaneers after what Dirk Cutter did last week, taking over from the God Monken.
You can't. I mean, that's like, that would be like disingenuous to do that. I mean, and I mean, I thought about doing it, honestly, and I was like, that's BS, because they gained over 500 total yards. I mean, I watched the game. I thought about it until I watched the game, and then I was like, man, I'm not going to hammer Todd Monken over this. I'm not going to hammer Dirk Cutter because the issues were on the players. I mean, the issues were on like Cameron Brate dropped a touchdown. Jacquizz Rodgers fumbles one into the end zone. Ryan Fitzpatrick. Look, spikes one to Mike Evans. I mean, you can't. I mean, it could become a sustained thing, like no question, and then it would look like a really big mistake to change play callers. But I think you're just trying to create a narrative if you're if you're hammering Dirk Cutter for what happened in the first game. I mean, look, I don't think there's any good that can come from pulling play calling duties away from Todd Monken, but in that first game to blame that on Dirk Cutter, I don't think that's right.
I still would not have admitted that I took the play calling duties away from him if I like I didn't
lied about it.
Like, yeah, it was a rough game for the offense. Kind of looked at the offensive coordinator, winked, like, keep your mouth shut. Don't you say it. That's what I would have done. So, I mean, to me, Reeves, when I look at this one, like just picking on this Tampa Bay defense with the Giants, like, can we really go back to Eli coming off a 3 touchdown performance? I think
why not? I mean, look, say what you want about Eli and how people feel about him as a player at this point, but for fantasy football purposes, he's hitting all these spots this year. He had 19.5 points on Monday. He had 20.7 points against the Falcons. He had 19.2 points against the Panthers, and at the time, he had 20 points against the Texans when they were a defense we were targeting. So any week we've really wanted to prop him and give him elevation based on matchup, he's come through. He's been usable. I mean, I'm not going to use him because me and Eli have a strict no DFS policy. But I mean, if you're going to stream him and play him at 5,200 on DK, like I have no like pushback against that because he's hitting all those spots. I mean, the Bucks, even after facing Alex Smith, they're still dead last in adjusted yards per allowed to quarterbacks. They're dead last still in passing points per game allowed to quarterbacks. And Odell is in the zone. Like we've seen Odell get in some of these zones before. And Odell hasn't even dropped like a 2-bill type of game yet either, and he still like has that like in his pocket. But Odell's getting real warm like the last 4 or 5 weeks, starting to stack some really good games, and he's going against the defense that has been the most profitable defense to target with lead wide receiver play. So I mean,
I mean, so, like there's a quarterback we can pay down for, and then we have a guy who we know he's going to be throwing the ball to, and a wide receiver who just matches up really well in a situation. It's Eli and Odell this week. And like, Evan, I see you smirking, man. I know you like Odell.
Oh, he's going to be so open. The thing is that like, so if Eli still had an NFL caliber arm, Odell Beckham would have scored like 5 touchdowns last week. Like, I mean, that definitely could have happened.
Yeah.
I love that Reeves is like, he never put skin in the game on Eli, but like it's really smart because I have put skin in the game on Eli twice this year.
Well, that's because I've done
it. yeah, in past years, right?
Yeah, you know what it's like. It's not as fun as a lot of stuff, but I mean,
it's one of those things when he hits, I just tip my cap. Way to be, Eli. All right.
He's gonna underthrow a few that probably potential touchdown passes. We know that. I mean. Last week, man, he had Odell wide open down the field, and he just underthrew him by like 15 yards. Bad. I mean, it was painful to watch, but at the same time, like against the Bucs secondary, if they underthrows him by 15 yards, it might not matter. Like it still might be a touchdown, right, Evan?
And he's been a below average NFL quarterback when he has a clean pocket, and being a below average NFL quarterback is all you need to take advantage of the Bucs defense. He's been like, bottom 5 quarterback when pressured. But yeah, I mean, he's tempting, man. I mean, 6,700 on FanDuel, man, I mean, if you're trying to get to that Monday night game as you should be, he's really tempting to go with. I don't know. I mean, I don't think I'm going to end up playing him because his floor is really low. He doesn't run for any yards. I think Saquon could go off here. And again, I played him against the Saints and I played him against the Eagles, and he did not work out either time. And I'm a human, and I have these crazy little biases. I have these crazy little biases.
We don't got time for no biases here.
I know. Hey, play him then. That's fine. I'm not playing him.
I've played worse. Well, I say that I've played worse players than Eli. I'm not sure that's true.
You played Alex Smith last week.
No, I thought about it. I didn't end up clicking the button though. I didn't end up clicking the button. Like I'm trying to think. I think I played CJ Beathard one week.
Well, listen, we're going to be playing RG3 this week, so we could get in. We could get on that train.
You misspoke. You meant the Bengals defense, right?
No.
We're not. RG3 is going to be a great play this week. Like or Lamar Jackson, like, are we gonna know by 5 minutes before kickoff? Because Evan, all I hear is that they're going to try and keep this in house as much as possible.
Yeah, they might just play like all three of them. I mean,
God,
wouldn't that be just awful?
Can you imagine like the Twitter tilt if as soon Robert Griffin III announces the starter in the second series? Here comes Lamar Jackson. Like, I'm just going to break stuff.
I mean, we talked about that Bengals defense last week on this show, and I had that game last week. That was my RotoWorld game. And that dude, they didn't try to tackle anyone in that game. Like, legitimately, like, that defense, and they lost. And Drake Kirkpatrick got knocked out of that game. What a disaster that defense is. And I'd be honest, man. Like, I selfishly want it to be RG because he's just $700 cheaper on FanDuel than Lamar. They're dead even priced on DK, so I just want to save the $700 and be selfish that way. But I would hope that we get some clarity on that because I think I would seriously play either of those guys.
No, if I knew they were going to play all the snaps, I would agree. Evan, it just feels like, doesn't it feel like you're going to play one of them and then he's only going to play half the snaps?
Yeah, I think they're going to end up rotating quarterbacks, honestly. I mean,
God damn it.
I know. It sucks. It sucks.
Yeah, it does suck. And, like, God, it would be such a nice spot to attack. And I just don't think we're going to be able to do it, which is really disappointing because being able to play a quarterback under 5K that you like that's got rushing upside, I don't know. Maybe even if they split carries, one of them gets there. You just won't.
And the Bengals have a ton of rushing yards to quarterbacks.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I know. You might have 200-yard rushers in this game, and either will be a running back.
And it looks like the Bengals are going to be without all three of their starting linebackers because Nick Vigil was not back in practice, Vontaze Burfict was not back in practice, and Preston Brown was out of practice on Wednesday. They may just be running out a whole reserve set of linebackers this week, and
corners.
Lamar Jackson could just rip that wide open. I mean,
well, I'm going to tell you, I streamed the Jets defense last week. 2 weeks ago, I streamed the Raiders defense. Let's go right back to the Bengals. Let's just keep lighting some money on fire. Yeah, I know. Reeves, is there anybody you can trust on this Bucs team at this point? I mean, I guess Mike Evans, of course, against the Giants.
Before we flip, I think that Sterling Shepard's a great tournament play this week, though.
All right, talk to me about Sterling Shepard.
Yeah, I mean, he's in a great balance. He had a season-low 3 targets last week. I mean, the Bucs have just been crushed in the slot. Like, first of all, they're just giving to everybody. But they're dead last. They're allowing almost 34 PPR points to wide receivers out of the slot combined per game. So I think just the 3 targets people will see, not want to play him. But he's a great, obviously Odell's going to be so high owned this week. He's just a great pivot, I believe. So
what you're saying is that we need to double stack Eli, Odell, and Sterling Shepard. That's what I'm hearing.
And Saquon, just get them all.
Yeah, hell, why not? We'll run it back with Ronald Jones.
Listen, man, I'm with the Eli take. I just can't play him based on a personal, we have a rule in house
That's
rebar.
Smart. That's smart.
No, so you're not on team Eli and Cash then, is that what you're saying?
I mean, I want to be. I think the logic is there. I'm all for these plays. It's just that this happens with this one guy. This is that one, you got that one person you just can't. Nah, I can't do it.
All right, well, let's flip over to the Bucs side because, I mean, we kind of touched on them earlier. And Reeves, who can we trust on this Bucs offense? I mean, after last week, they just burned essentially everybody, but Mike Evans, he's always in play. O.J. Howard, Deshaun Jackson, of course, a home run hitter. Who do you like on this Bucs offense?
Yeah, the problem is all these guys are good. They're all good players. And the passing volume is so high, they can really go – we've seen it flip-flop all around. I will say that Mike Evans has started to show a lot more of a floor that I'm comfortable for his price and where he is amongst his peers. I mean, he's been a wide receiver 4 or lower now in 4 of his past 6 games. The Giants have allowed a league low 5 receiving touchdowns to wide receivers. It's tied with the Jaguars. Only Julio Jones has gone over 100 yards against it. It feels like it's just going to be another sum of parts types performance for the Bucs. Like, it's hard to nail down an individual I really like here. Evan might sway me here, the god of matchups here. But, I mean, right now I'm not really seeing what I'm really drawn to because the Giants have been good against wide receivers. I mean, part of it's just game script, too. The Giants really haven't been in a lot of games. It's just – and you don't want to play these running backs. They've been terrible against running backs. They've given up 14 touchdowns to running backs, but you don't want to play Peyton Barber ever. We don't want to play Jacquizz Rodgers. It's just I don't know. I don't know, man. I know the yards are going to be here and the points are going to be here. I just don't know where they're going.
even I've got to draw the line at Jaquiz Rogers, man. Like, I mean, just no thank you. So, Evan, who do you like on this Tampa Bay side?
Probably Fitzpatrick as a bounce back. A lot of that is contingent upon, though, Eli playing well. I think that, there's just something about Ryan Fitzpatrick that you want him to be playing with urgency in a game. You do not want him to be playing in low-scoring games or, tightly contested games. You want him to be playing in situations where he doesn't have to overthink situations. He's a really smart guy. But you want him to just be playing like at 100 miles an hour. I mean, that he always seems to play better like when he's, trying to rally back from like a 21-point deficit.
Garbage time Fitzy.
Yeah, I mean, he'll run more. The Giants have given up the most rushing yards to opposing quarterbacks. I'm not sure who to pair him with. I know that's what you guys are getting at. Cameron Brate's routes were down last week. O.J. Howard's were up, yet O.J. Howard only saw 2 targets. Mike Evans, I think he's got a great matchup against Janoris Jenkins, but his box scores recently haven't been great. He got owned by James Bradbury in Week 9, and then last week he Fitzpatrick just threw a wide open touchdown into the dirt against him. You look at
Mike, he almost brought it in too.
Yeah, you look at so Fitzpatrick has played 5 full games. Okay, it was weeks 1, 2, and 3, and 9 and 10. And if you just isolate those games, Mike Evans has 672 air yards, and the next closest is Deshaun Jackson at like 350. So Mike Evans has just a massive opportunity share when Ryan Fitzpatrick is in there, but he's not going to hit every time. He's very much a volatile player.
Yeah. So basically Mike Evans, or, I mean, if you want, like, I'm not going to argue with people if they want to roll the dice on a Deshaun Jackson or OJ Howard. It's just nothing I feel comfortable with, Reeves.
Yeah, I think those guys are fine to take your seasonal swings on. It's just hard to get overexposed to those guys because of the boom bust quality. And we talk about that, those boom bust players you kind of want to be under on.
All right, let's talk about Philly at New Orleans. 56-point total. The Saints 9-point favorites. And Evan, I'm just going to come out and ask you: are the Saints the best team in the league?
Man, that's a good question. We've got some really good teams. Kansas City is really good. The Rams are really good. But I think that, I don't know. It's really difficult. Reeves, what do you think?
I mean, to me, like, when has being the best team in Week 9 been relevant?
It's a fair point.
It's really like, I mean,
I wish it was still Week 9 because then we would have more buys.
Oh yeah, in Week 11. I mean, it's gonna be it's always about who these guys that get hot. Obviously the AFC, we know like the core teams that are always there, and I think this year we'll have the Chargers in the mix and the Chiefs who have
Chargers. Yeah, what about the Steelers? I mean, they're
like I said, they're always
they're not giving up points anymore. Their defense is like.
It's not going to be the free run for the Patriots it's been, for sure.
No, definitely not.
It is weird that we're like talking about all these, who's the best team in the league, and we're just completely ignoring the Patriots too, though they did just get thumped by the Titans.
They're not the best team in the league, though.
Yeah, but it's just weird that they're not.
Who were the 2 teams the Patriots played in the playoffs last year before the AFC Championship? Well, they only played one. They played the Titans, right? Like this year, their second round game, that first game, is going to be way tougher than it was probably in like recent years.
I mean, it can't be. If it was the Titans, it can't be tough. It can't be, that's for sure.
Yeah, they played the Titans in their house last year in the divisional round.
They played the Titans and the Jaguars last year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they went to the AFC title game. Right. This year, they're going to play someone good because you're going to have the Steelers, you have the Chargers in there. Obviously, we're assuming the Chiefs get a bye, which I guess isn't even in stone at this point because they could lose to the Rams. They could still lose to the Chargers again. I mean, it's not really about who's playing, whoever the best team in Week 11 is. It's, who the teams that get hot and make a run towards the end.
And who wins the battle of attrition, too.
But right now, the Saints are dictating what they want to do, offensively. It's such a clip on all these teams. I mean, they're able to throw for wins. They're able to run for wins.
And that's a good segue. Do we think that the Saints are going to be able to impose their will with the running game on the Eagles?
I would have said no until I saw freaking Zeke Elliott go crazy on Sunday night.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm willing to give him a pass because Zeke was lightweight in God mode on Sunday night. He was jumping over guys. We've seen that run game get hot because up until that point, I mean, they had allowed 100 yards just one other guy. It was Saquon, and Saquon ripped off like 3 really monstrous runs that Thursday night game. And we've seen the Saints run game kind of not put up like a lot of efficiency, more be like a value base. I definitely would say don't put any stock into what Mark Ingram did last week against that Bengals defense, against this Philadelphia defense. Like the holes he had and the broken tackles, like I don't really see like his game translating into having a good game against Philadelphia. This feels like a definite get a Kamara type spot. We talked about it last week too when we talked about the Saints. He's now outtouched since their bye. He's outtouched Mark Ingram 21-5 in the red zone. And the Eagles ranked 28th in receptions allowed to running back. So I mean, it feels like a Kamara type, the high point game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never going to argue against Kamara. I'm never going to argue against Michael Thomas. I mean, I feel like Traquan has to have a better game this week, doesn't he?
I like Traquan a lot.
Yeah, like especially against this Philly team that gives up a lot of deep balls. Like, because it saw 0 targets last week. You know that Drew Brees is going to go back to him a few times in this one. Just as sorry I didn't get you any looks, even though we put up half 100 last week. Like, you like Traquan? Who else do you like here, Evan?
So the Eagles began the season with a nickel package of free safety Rodney McLeod, Malcolm Jenkins at strong safety, left cornerback Jalen Mills, slot corner Sidney Jones, and right corner Ronald Darby. Okay, Ronald Darby tore his ACL. Sidney Jones out with a hamstring injury. Jalen Mills foot injury, not coming back this week. Rodney McLeod on injured reserve with MCL surgery. So the only remaining dude from their nickel package is Malcolm Jenkins, who is not having a particularly good year. So we just wipe out their starting lineup essentially, and they're playing undrafted rookie Chandon Sullivan. They're playing a 4th round pick named Avante Maddox at slot corner. And the Saints love to run Michael Thomas in the slot. Mm-hmm. And whenever Michael Thomas is in the slot, Brees is throwing to him. He actually doesn't have a high slot percentage, but if you just look at his target percentage per slot route, it's like absurd. Like it's the biggest in the league. So whenever he is in the slot, Brees is like, oh yeah, and just rocketing him balls.
At least until Brandon Marshall takes over.
No. Don't
just
say
kidding.
That. Don't say that. All right. So the outside cornerbacks for the Eagles are Rasul Douglas and this undrafted dude from Georgia State, Chandon Sullivan. Okay. Rasul Douglas ran 4.59 coming out of West Virginia, and Chandon Sullivan ran 4.6 flat. Okay. Traquan Smith is a deep speed burner. I know that he disappointed a lot of people last week. People should not have been playing him last week. Like you don't play these deep threat dudes on the road, in Cincinnati. You play them inside the freaking Superdome, just like we did all the time with Ted Ginn, mm-hmm. and we made money. And if you look at it's the exact same thing is happening with Traquan Smith. Like his big games are happening at home in the Superdome, and he's busting every single time that they're on the road. And he has the best matchup that he's had all season in this games. And, look, he's not going to get 9 targets. He's going to have to make do on 4 to 6, but I think he's an incredible tournament play, and his price ought to be very, very cheap. I think it's $4K flat on DK.
Yeah, that's a really good price on Traquan, and I'm fine with playing him. Reeves mentioned not going back to Mark Ingram. I assume you're doing the same thing, just fading Mark Ingram here, Evan? He's cheap. Evan, did we lose you?
Yeah. So with Mark Ingram, it's very it's like the opposite of Traquan Smith, right? So, well, it's not the opposite. Mark Ingram's big games have happened when the Saints are just destroying. When the Saints are destroying the Bengals, they destroyed the Redskins in that Monday night game. When the game has been kind of, competitive, Mark Ingram hasn't really been a factor. they know that Alvin Kamara is better than Mark Ingram. So you have to make a decision. Do you think that the Saints are just going to destroy the Eagles this week? Then maybe Mark Ingram can be a factor. But I think this is very clearly an Alvin Kamara game, especially because the Eagles are getting smashed by running backs in the passing game too.
Yeah, it seems like a really simple Kamara spot for me as well. Reeves, talk to me about this Philly side, because the Saints, we always know we're just going to play the Saints guys. We're going to play Kamara. We're going to play Michael Thomas. We're going to play him, often. We're going to play them on a ton of teams. Philly, it's a different spot because we got Golden Tate. Didn't do a lot in his debut, and now he gets a match against the Saints, who aren't very good in the slot. But again, 9-point underdogs. What do we think about Philly here?
Yeah, it's going to be tough to decide what to do, between Tate and Aguilar and those, because you have to assume he ran his 15 pass routes last week, Golden Tate, and that was even off of a bye to get, acclimated and get him worked in. So really hard to take a stab there, but we know he's going to get more usage as this training moves along. But, it's tough to really sink your teeth in. Obviously, everyone's going to want to play Ertz. Kelsey's on Monday night. Not that Gronk was doing anything, but he's not on the slate. It's really Ertz, and then it's a big drop. Ertz or punt basically is what I want to do. I'm probably not. Hireman's dope again this week. I was gonna bring him up later. But yeah, a lot of people are going on to play for Ertz. Ertz already has the most catches for a tight end through 9 games in NFL history, and he doesn't even need to catch a pass in this game to have the most through 10 games.
He's a stud.
Yeah, he's Wentz's binky. I think Wentz on FanDuel is underpriced. I think he's probably a little overpriced on DK. He's hard to get, but on FanDuel he's underpriced. If you want to run a game stack with him, you could even play him, I think, solo if you wanted, or play him with Ertz, Michael Thomas and Kamara, and kind of really corner a lot of the touchdowns in this game if you do that. The Saints, even before last week when they ran into that Andy Dalton, AJ Greenless, just dead Bengals team, and the Bengals have gotten just flat out blasted in two of their three past good games against good teams. The Saints were allowed 19.5 fantasy points to Joe Flacco, 21 points to Kirk Cousins, 29 points to Jared Goff. I still believe there's going to be points here. Wentz has been hot. He's playing actually better football, efficiency wise, than he even was last year. And scoring fantasy points. He's the QB4 since he came back. Since the game after he came back. The points are still there. I think he's severely underpriced. It's just outside of Ertz, it's hard to find someone on this offense you really like. If you look at Alshon, his duds have come when he's had a crummy matchup, a crummy individual matchup. And I know that we don't always want to put stock into the cornerback, receiver matchups. So when you have a guy like Alshon who has a scoring upside, and I wouldn't fade him for this matchup, but you look at all his games where he's just stunk since he come back. Xavier Rhodes, Jalen Ramsey, Byron Jones. He's done nothing in those games. Now he's going to probably play, against Marshawn Lattimore for almost all of his snaps. Like I said, I wouldn't fade him. I think he's fine in tournaments because he's got that 2-touchdown upside. But there's a clear correlation to Alshon and his matchup so far in his production.
I think Golden Tate's going to crush this week. I think this is the week. I understand last week didn't work out and he wasn't too popular. I think this was going to be the week where people say Golden Tate 5,500 on DraftKings on a PPR site. I just have trouble, Reeves, not paying 5,500 for Golden Tate in a matchup against the Saints who struggle against slot wideouts.
Well, you could play their slot wideout, which was Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah.
Golden's got to line up in the slot.
Are you going to pay 5,500 for a fourth receiver, bro?
Oh, come on. He's like a fourth receiver plus. He's not just a fourth receiver.
Okay.
I've paid more for worse players than Golden Tate.
How much is Jordan Matthews? He's going to be out there more than Golden Tate.
3,100. 3,100. You get out of here. Stop it. He's not going to be out there more than Golden Tate. You guys have lost it. I'll take Golden Tate snaps versus Jordan Matthews snaps. Even money. All right, nothing. All right, let's talk some other quarterbacks in this slate. I've already heard some talk about Cam this week, and Cam every week, we can talk about, obviously. He's disappointed a few times, but yeah, Cam, of course. Reeves, who are some of the other quarterbacks you're looking at?
Dak Prescott. I think it flips. If you like Mariota and Dak, their prices are flipped where they where they are on FanDuel and DK, whereas Dak's a little cheaper on DK and Mariota's a little cheaper on FanDuel. Dak is starting to find like some of that floor he had over the first year and a half of his career. So QB1, 3 of the past 4 weeks. He's thrown for over 240 passing yards now, which is not a lot, but for Dak, it's a big deal. In 3 straight games for the first time since rookie season, he's starting to get rushing attempts inside the 10 for touchdowns. The Falcons are another of these teams that just have not let us down, to target. They're 30th in passing points allowed to quarterbacks. Baker got them last week. 7 of the 9 quarterbacks they faced have had 20 or more fantasy points, and they have allowed the 4th most rushing points to quarterbacks this season. So the toughest thing for me with Dak is I really just want to play Zeke with like everyone else this week. So if you want to play Dak, like, do you just try to play him with Zeke, or is it a game where Zeke, gets 3 of the 4 touchdowns and like Dak has kind of a floor game? But I think that Dak's still in play though.
Yeah, I just want to play Zeke. I feel like Zeke's just the guy I want to click on as far as that game. Evan, what about you? Some other quarterbacks that you like? Who are they?
No, we talked about all the guys like, New Orleans against Philadelphia. I'm looking at that game, looking at Indianapolis against Tennessee. What do you think about this Thursday night game, though? Like, I think Russ is in a pretty interesting spot. The Packers have given up so many points in every game when they're playing on the road, and they are severely shorthanded.
Honestly, I haven't looked at all Thursday night, so I'll let you guys talk about it. Reeves, what do you think about this Thursday night game?
I like it. I mean, you're just running the same problem with Russ that we're going to have every week. I think they're going to run the ball well. They're a home favorite on a short week. The Packers have been terrible. I think it's going to be a game where he just has to do a lot on 24 to 27 pass attempts again.
All right. Well,
I'm into him. I'm into him now.
Yeah. Evan, is there any specific reason you like Russ, or you just like the matchup and you think he's interesting?
No, just throwing him out because he's in that same price range. I think he's the exact same price as Carson Wentz on FanDuel. I don't know. He started running again, which is like really intriguing. I think the game could be relatively high scoring, but I completely agree that he's going to have like a really high touchdown rate, and his touchdown rate already has been like through the roof. So
11% the last 5 weeks.
Sure, dude.
That's a lot. That's pretty big.
We've got a few of these guys going right now. Russ has been taking the forefront because he's been doing it a lot longer, but Phillip Rivers is doing the same thing. He's thrown like 27 or fewer passes, like 5 of his past 6 games, and he's the only quarterback thrown for multiple touchdowns every game this year. And Deshaun Watson's doing the same thing, only throwing like 25 times a game, and is living that. All those guys are living like a fantasy high wire act right now, based on their value.
The Chargers are 30th in the NFL in pass attempts. The Seahawks are 31st, and the Titans are 32nd. And we're talking about a bunch of these guys as fantasy plays this week. It's a little scary.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are people that in season long, like people are just starting those guys every week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to keep playing Andrew Luck and his 45 passing attempts every game. That makes me happy. I have a lot of red zone pass with Luck. I'm perfectly fine with that. All right, let's touch on some running backs. We already talked about Ezekiel. He's 8.5K over on DraftKings. Against Atlanta, yeah, guys, no kidding. You're going to play him. The most expensive running back on this slate, though, is Melvin Gordon at home against Denver. Evan, are you on the Melvin Gordon train this week?
Absolutely. I mean, we talk about how the Chargers want to play. They want to play balanced and run-heavy offense. They've been limiting the pass attempts of their quarterback. If you look at the pass attempts that the Broncos have faced, bottom 10 in the league, so it very much adds up to a great spot for Melvin Gordon. He's favored at home by a touchdown. The Broncos are not going to have back their top inside linebacker, Brandon Marshall, coming off the bye due to a knee injury. The Chargers their offensive line has been great, and the Broncos have not been penetrating backfields. Like if you just look at tackle for loss percentage, the Broncos are really low in that. From a defensive standpoint, and the Chargers are really high in terms of not allowing tackles for losses. So people are just not getting in the Chargers backfield, and that's good for Melvin Gordon. He's had a lot of free lanes, and they use him great. I love the way that they use him in the passing game. Anthony Lynn told us that this would happen entering the season. This is another example of coach speak is not always going to be right, but you don't just ignore it. You definitely don't ignore coach speak. You store it away. We have Ron Rivera, we have Norv Turner coming out in the offseason saying that Christian McCaffrey is going to get 20-plus touches per game. You don't just say, oh, that's BS, it's coach speak. You're like, you may have a level of skepticism, but you also be open-minded, and this is the way that you get league winners on your fantasy football roster.
All right, where's some of the other running backs for you, Reeves? Who are you looking at here?
Do you want to play David Johnson this week, Crane?
Man,
I told you, man. I told you, Crane.
I mean, do you know how bad a defense has to be to have a projected total over 3 touchdowns against the Cardinals? Like, the Cardinals have a projected team total of 23 right now. How bad is that defense has to be? Guess what? It's the Raiders. It's the worst defense in football, probably.
Dude, we got him as a home favorite. When are you ever getting David Johnson as a home favorite for the rest of this season?
Maybe next 2 or 3 seasons.
This dude he has 20 touches in 5 of his past 6 games.
All right, I'm in, because I'll tell you what, if he hadn't been so bad earlier in the year, he'd be 9K in this game, wouldn't he?
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
He would be prime.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they are only able to spike him so much because he was so underpriced last week.
Yeah. He was so.
They couldn't take him from 6-7 on FanDuel to 9, so they had to hold him off.
I told you to play him last week, Crane. Don't. What is that? The Matthew Berry thing? I told you not to play him. Well, for me, I told you to play him. I told you to play him.
Yeah, you hold up the sign, the bright yellow sign.
I had so much Bortles and David Johnson last week.
You gotta play him with the Cardinals defense this week. You play David Johnson and Cardinals defense. What do you think?
The saddest discussion I've ever heard.
Is anyone swinging on Alex Collins?
No.
If we get Lamar or RG3.
I mean, this Bengals defense, it's just so bad.
Trash.
They're giving up,
Trash.
Dude, they're giving up 177 total yards per game to opposing backfields. They've allowed a running back to score in 8 straight games. The guy who is most touchdown dependent of all running backs is Alex Collins. 42% of his PPR points come from touchdowns. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he's just so hard to trust, but I mean, it's there.
All right, I'm building a lineup right now. I threw David Johnson in. I hope you guys.
Did it pain you? Hey,
no. You know what? I'm learning my lesson.
Listen, we're the fish here, Crane. We got to get on you when we can.
Yeah, of course. That's why we do it.
I'm just looking at. I'm trying to find my cheap defense. I'm trying to figure out who it's going to be. Who am I glancing at? Let's see. Detroit, have they quit enough, Evan?
They're done.
Yeah. Okay, so I can play Carolina's defense.
No. Play the Cardinals, man. Play the Cardinals.
Yeah.
The Cardinals are. I'm not paying $3,100 for the Cardinals defense.
What about
What about the Steelers?
They're probably a little more expensive. They're $2,900.
200 saving.
The Steelers are cheaper than the Cardinals in defense. Okay. What a weird world. Evan, any other running backs you like we haven't touched on? Deion Lewis, are we going back there, I guess? I know we talked about it earlier.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. David Johnson. I really like Aaron Jones on Thursday night too. Loved him last week. I love him again this week. So
Aaron Jones has 154 career carries now and is averaging 6.1 yards per carry. I know that there's
crazy.
Dude, I know yards per carry aren't a tell-all, but that stat's a tell-all. It's
Yep. No, I'm with you there. Aaron Jones, he's good at the old football. He's just, and hey, now he's finally getting to carry the ball. Good for you, Mike McCarthy. Well done. Any other running backs we can touch on, Evan? I know I kind of cut you off there.
No. I think we pretty much covered it, I think.
All right, let's talk about some wide receivers then. Up the top, it's Michael Thomas, 8,800. Obviously, he's a great play. Obviously, we love him every single week. Reeves, give me some wideouts that you like.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what we do because it is one of the weeks where we got some expensive wideouts we might want to play, but it's been such a not pay for wide receiver type of year so far. It's just gone swimmingly if you haven't really paid for wide receiver, just because there's so many receiving points around the league, and running back. Those apex running backs have just they've just hit every week. But it is a week where you might want to get Michael Thomas in. You might want to get Odell in. I didn't mention with the Saints. Michael Thomas averages the most points per game at home in the NFL, quarterbacks included. The most PPR points per game out of all players. He averages 29.9 PPR points per game in the Superdome. Any quarterback, no matter what, he has the most points per game at home. So you might want to pay for him if you get, obviously Odell. But it's been such a year to pay down. I'm curious to get Evan's take on the situation that's now playing out in Detroit. Like, they have to just give Galladay like 12 targets, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, their receiver core is shot. Like, they don't have anything else. T.J. Jones and Brandon Powell. I mean, it's really bad.
Bruce Ellington.
Theo Riddick's going to end up with 12 catches. You know that.
Damn it. Yeah, so he is. For 48 yards.
For 48 yards.
That's all right. What's the price tag? $4K. That's going to pay that off.
I think going back to Corey Davis is fine against Indianapolis. I think it looks like a high-scoring game, the targets, and he leads the NFL in air yards over the last 2 weeks. Tyler Boyd, people played him last week. He didn't do anything. The Bengals just didn't have the ball, and the Bengals, like, the way to attack the Ravens is in the middle of the field. Tyler Boyd plays in the slot. Larry Fitz, of course, every week. I mean, 10 targets since Byron Leftwich took over as play caller and MVS every week.
All right, I'm going to throw in we already talked about Traquan. I love that you're on Team Theo, though. I thought I was all alone with Theo Riddick. I'm sitting here. I'm playing him in both season-long teams, Evan. Are you excited? We're in bye-week hell this week, buddy.
If you get 12 catches for 48 yards, that's 16.8 PPR points.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I am thrilled with that from Theo. I'm starting to believe I'd just take 6.8. So, yeah, I'd be really happy with 16.8. Reeves, any wide receivers that you need to touch on before you head off?
I mean, Amari, man. Amari's in a good spot again. Amari's had, over 25% of the team targets in both games, had a high floor. All we've ever wanted from Amari is just be consistent. He doesn't have to be a guy that gets 30 a game, but he for what he's priced, if he just continues to produce what he's done the first 2 games, and we talked about the matchup for Dak. I mean, everyone's going to play Zeke. Obviously, the anti-Zeke stack is, just play Amari and Dak together, and hopefully you get the touchdowns. Obviously, Zeke's going to get his yards. But, I mean, Amari's cheap on both sites, like really cheap, especially on DK. I think he's a direct pivot, too, off Corey Davis on DK. Probably I like Corey Davis more, but I mean, probably similar, kind of structure there, what you're going to get, where the floors are. And then DeAndre Hopkins, again, man, like we talk about these receivers and not paying up. Like DeAndre Hopkins is starting to float through the radar still in DFS. He was underowned before the bye, was on by. He had 50% of the targets in that last game that he played. We talked no Will Fuller. We still don't know what we're going to get from Demaryius. Kiki QT is like a guy like we really can't count on either. They're going to keep just jamming targets to DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, I definitely think they're a worse place you go than Hopkins. Every single week, he's like Reeves said, you just said, he's unowned in DFS, and it just makes no sense whatsoever. But man, if you can get him in your lineups, do it. He's not going to be on this week at all, especially with Odell. He's 500 cheaper than Odell. He's a little bit more than guys like Antonio Brown, Mike Evans. If a lot of gluttons for punishment are out there that want to roster Mike Evans again, he's like in that no man's land, not no man's land, but he's in an area where people are either going to pay up for Odell, up for Michael Thomas, or down a little bit for Antonio Brown. And I think DeAndre Hopkins in tournaments. I always love DeAndre Hopkins in tournaments. All right, guys, we got to get off here. We got to get Devin home. He's got to drive through the country music festival, whatever the hell is going on down there. So I don't know what that is, but it doesn't sound like something I'm too interested in. So, Devin, I'll let you take care of that. It's been a lot of fun, everybody. For Reeves, for Evan, for Kobe Fleener, I'm Eric. Thank you so much for tuning in to the RotoWorld RotoGrinders DFS Pick 6. See you guys later. Peace.